Hi, welcome to Smileys. I'm Mora, and today we are doing Follow Flight Chapter 4, and it is Lee's turn today.
Yep.
And as you can see from his expression, he is super excited to start off. Apparently, he spent probably 2 days preparing the
days.
summary, and it has taken him like 6,400 words.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that is the face of a man with a lot of regret. So let's just start, Lee. I can't wait to see where you've taken this because this is a really interesting chapter, and it was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Let's see what you've done with it.
I don't even know how many times I've read this chapter actually, but if I don't start now, I'll never finish. Anyway, I have with me some alcohol because I'll need some, and you probably will need some as well. So cheers.
Unfortunately, I'm just drinking Pepsi.
Right. So, as usual, I have titled my scenes because it makes it easier to summarize and makes it easier to digest.
And it's more fun.
And it's more fun. Scene 1, I have named, as it begins, Lead unto me each and every child.
Yeah. Or you could
Now-
just name it Revulsion or something.
I could, yeah. Now, I wanted to find some biblical passage about Jesus, Big J, talking about children and how but I couldn't find it, and I couldn't look
Big
it up in the
J.
wiki. So yeah, that's what I call Jesus, Big J. So unfortunately, there will be no biblical talk in this particular scene. There's probably a few parallels to make.
10
But
very big books have AJ. We should just say that, our
Yeah.
unseen producer is Big J with us.
yeah. Anyway, the scene opens with the titular phrase, "Lead unto me each and every child," and Caplo Dreem's internal monologue. That phrase haunts Caplo, and the implications behind it are not ones that he wishes to dwell upon for long, nor allow anyone else to do so. Alas, he indeed dwells upon it longer, remembering the frail old form of Higher Grace Kellenal, grinding out that invitation in a cold room, his eyes filled with something that cannot in good conscience be called holy. Though Caplo knows that the old are useless in most ways, and Kellenal is 2,000 years old, they can tend fecund gardens of desire. Yes?
How do you know 2,000 years?
We know Sakanto is 2,000 years, and when is their brothers? Siblings.
How do we know Shikanto is 2,000 years?
We learned that last book. She's speaking to
We did?
Triss in Caplo.
I don't
and
remember a
Resh
number.
and Triss are talking.
No,
and
I don't remember a number. Fine.
But
okay,
yeah,
if
anyway,
you say
just
so.
take my word for it. 2,000 years old. We don't actually know Skellenal's age. This is a bit of a guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. They can tend severally fecund gardens of desire, and this motherfucker speaks like this for the entire chapter. And can you tell why I'm exasperated?
Have a shot.
Cheers.
Yeah.
God below. He would yield no pity in such places, because a garden made verdant with lust mocked every notion of virtue. I wrote every virtue of virtue. Good shit. Every notion of virtue.
Yeah.
In simpler, non-Caplo words, Skellenal, as Caplo puts it later, gropes children, and I'm being a bit too generous by keeping it just there. Now, it does pay to remember that both Resh and Caplo are of the Yanis monastery, so they have probably no idea of Skellenal's antics before they get to the monastery now, which adds some weight to why they're so disgusted by it, rather than just feeling hypocritical. That's what I thought at first.
So-
wouldn't he
so
know
what
about
you're
this?
saying is-
No, he wouldn't. Yeah?
So what we're saying is just Shikanto is not a pedophile. That's all.
Yes. Shikando is awful in other ways.
Yeah. Not this.
Having a personal assassin.
Yeah. I mean,
But anyway. Resh intrudes on his thoughts because Caplo is much dour than usual, which is uncharacteristic of him, and he responds that winter has stripped the life from his surroundings, and he hardly welcomes the sight. Resh replies that Caplo shapes what he sees and sees only what he first shapes, as people cannot reconcile the inside with the outside, and they try and juggle between the two, and that is the first of many times Resh just utters some profound philosophical truth to this chapter. I'm not going to comment on all of them. This is just one of many.
okay.
So what made Caplo so dour, as aforementioned, is the hungers of old men, and Resh explains that Skellenal's actions were as prescribed. The Sheikh have need of children to bolster their numbers, and we saw this in the last book, and though there's nothing quite holy about that, the Higher Grace did not overstep his boundaries in doing so. Caplo disagrees. The words he spoke merely flayed the skin from his pernicious appetites. And if holy words are desirable for their pliability, what makes them holy in the first place? What good is a faith that changes constantly to suit the whims of the believers? Caplo admits to a crisis of faith. The warlock responds that he didn't even think Caplo had faith in the Sikh religion. Believers are eager to confuse salvation with rebirth, and I will admit I do not know what that means.
Eager to confuse what with what?
Salvation with rebirth, and I do not know what this means in this context. Because, yeah. But anyway, this should not worry Caplo, for they have made sure that no child will find its way to Skilnal's hands. Cheers.
Oh my god, you're drinking straight from the bottle.
The assassin, alas, thinks bigger. If their faith is built on such pliable foundations, then they must, by prescription, knead and prod the child's mind, and so make improvements upon the faith to suit the needs of believers. Faith becomes a thing of rote, devoid of meaning, yearning for the very salvation Resh spoke of earlier. Caplo claims he has found the truth. From the very beginning of religion's founding, each generation following it moves away from the original meaning. At road's end, faith ends up being a poor imitation of what it once was. Caplo uses the word pastiche, which is not a word I'd ever heard before.
What was it? I didn't look up. I forgot to look up.
It just means imitation. It's a fancy word for imitation.
Okay.
Caplo uses a lot of fancy words for some very mundane shit.
I mean, it's mundane to you, but
it is.
Stuff.
Yeah. That's what I mean when I say Caplo is Caplo-ing, rather than say imitation. It's pastiche and like the guffaw barely held in check and shit like that. The spiritual and divine gives way to secular and profane, and in the shadows behind the aldars, foul-fingered men grope children. What god blesses this? What god forgives this? Indeed, those men know that no god does, or would, and so they find their own reward in these transgressions. The taboo, the forbidden, provides its own allure. Caplo Dreem, Caplo-ing. Again.
Caplo Dreem, yeah. What happened to the glass? Did you just finish that?
No, I still have it here. This is 40% alcohol. It's 5.
Oh, is that a different one? Okay, right.
Yeah. This is beer.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm not drinking aquavit from the glass.
That's what I thought.
Beer is below. No. So what I wanted to mention is that this entire dialogue, takes place during these two walking 200 meters through the forest to some basin, and you have no idea. You are none the wiser where they are or what they're doing. It's just the chapter begins, lead unto me each and every child, and then just Caplo moping for a page and a half. It's great.
Isn't that every scene begins that way, isn't it?
Yeah.
You just randomly get into someone's thoughts, and then you see that they're just riding somewhere, walking somewhere.
Yeah.
So they meet.
Resh contemplates and eventually sums up the tirade. Mother Shakanto is functionally almost dead, and Skeletal cannot wait for her to die while Caplo contemplates killing the old bastard, and the latter concurs. I think his exact words were, "I would cut the shriveled cock at its root, and thus blunt the precedent in a well of bloodshed," or something.
Yeah.
Just to showcase how much
Didn't
Caplo
we just
likes
have some amount of genital mutilation threats in the previous chapter? When
by Glyph. Yeah, we did. We did. Yeah.
So that's why I think Fall of Light is fine if we just split according to chapters, because it's not like in all his previous books, I thought Erikson kept chapters so tight, so thematically together. Here it seems, to overflow between chapters. Things.
Oh, yeah.
No? Yeah.
And between books. There's a lot of things from Forge of Darkness that comes up a lot of here, and I'll get to that when it comes up, but I concur. Resh claims that this confession of patricide is not for him, though he would not mourn Skeletal's passing, and would indeed aid Caplo should that day arrive, in Faith's name.
In Faith's name.
Now, I think the way he puts it is hang on, I need to find the quote, because effectively what Resh says is I would not mourn Skeletal's passing, but the way he says it, it's so extra.
Should
Hang on.
such need arrive? He said, oh no, this is the one. Or the many who mourn a graveside in silence will harbor condign thoughts of the departed, with none to
Condign
know the
thoughts.
difference. Oh,
God damn.
yeah. We wear grief like a shroud and pray the weave is close enough to hide our satisfied expressions. In faith's name?
In faith's
In
name.
faith's name.
Cheers.
That should be the. Right. So then they meet
Rivera.
who is ritual bound to Resh.
Yeah.
Have your coke. Yeah, have your coke.
Jesus. So the two men have left the monastery behind by now, and yes, that entire time spent in Caplo's head and in dialogue with Resh was while they were talking, where they were going, as usual. And as Maura mentioned, they meet with Rivera, who is Resh's life-bound mate, who is none too pleased to see Caplo Dreem. The assassin assuages her, begrudgingly, that he's merely here to serve as a guardian, but Rivera is unimpressed with both him and Shakanto.
Does the hag fear me now? Is that what she asks?
Resh claims that his marriage with Rivera isn't worth consummating, and in such a matter, we get the most roundabout way to say that Resh is not romantically or sexually attracted to Rivera, culminating in the latter saying that her groping hand awakened nothing, which is just great writing, because all three of them know this. Caplo knows, Resh knows, and Rivera know. The only person who doesn't know is you, but they still go about it in such a roundabout way. It's like, oh, I now begin to see the turn of your desires, because, like, in the face of such a marriage, I too would lie with men. Caplo's just a dick to Rivera, man. That's what the bottom line. Anyway, the trio reach a rise in the valley, and the witch invites the men to observe this consecrated ground. In effect, it's a slight depression cut through by a small stream.
Why didn't she say something like peruse this yawn basin or something?
Yeah, that's what Resh would say. Okay?
Yeah.
She's not Caplo-ing.
So yeah, they see this basin.
It's a slight depression cut through by a small stream, and the seeming reason for Rivera's calling it consecrated is because, in spite of the water, the basin seemingly remains dry. Caplo, ever the unimaginative pragmatist, is unimpressed. Indeed, groundwater erosion could cause a cave-in of the surrounding land and therefore create such a vista. There's nothing holy or profound here, just nature at work. Rivera makes a point of pointedly ignoring him, and Resh has to somewhat concur with both. Caplo's reasoning is sound, if not mundane, but Resh can sense something beneath that doesn't belong to the river god. He wonders if it's the Newell, and we learn from the last book that the Sheikh described the Newell as an experience of surrender, of bliss.
Of being like one with all the nature around you or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
You have to walk the paths of death. Yeah.
Yep. But Rivera declines, saying that there's nothing, if it is healing magic, there's nothing sympathetic about it, or something to that end. Resh asks that Rivera awaken the power and thereby demonstrate what she means. The witch replies that they are to fashion a god from whatever this being is. Excuse me. And through it stand on both sides of the conflict of light and dark. Caplo, to complete the metaphor, mentions that Rivera invents from shadows.
Yes. So
he contends that he never trusted imagination.
Can we just mention, because
yes.
people who are listening have hopefully finished this chapter, can we just say that this entire chapter is all about Edur, the shadow. It's all about shadow, right? So we've had light all this while, we've had dark all this while, and this is when we start getting like long discussions about shadow, right? So that's what this chapter does in this book. Yeah, go on. So Rivera invents from shadows.
Mm-hmm. Caplo contends that he never trusted imagination, which is a throwback to chapter 9 of Forge of Darkness, where Shakanto ostensibly told him that as a child he knelt before pragmatism and therefore surrendered his capacity for imagination.
Yeah,
because Caplo needs to Caplo even when someone else is talking. And so asks that
he
Rivera
was just brainwashed by Shakanto to become an assassin.
Yeah.
Poor fellow.
Yeah. And so he asks that Rivera materialize what she means. If they indeed are to fashion a god from this, make it so, and Caplo would kneel in abject servitude. If, however, he notices the witch's hands in the shaping, he will refuse worship altogether. Rivera
So
fires
that
back.
particular thing, he mentioned something like, if I see your thumbprint or your palm print on the god you fashion, right? So just wanted to say, like in our religion, we sometimes actually make small lumps of, from turmeric powder and things like that. We just make small lumps, like, that's worshipped as god. You make a small triangular pyramid-like thing and just place it, and you pray to it. Basically, you do all your rituals to it. So there is no escaping fingerprints and palm prints there. I'm just saying, that's what it reminded me of. Like, I mean, you are already?
No, not
You're
that
like,
much.
okay.
I'm still like, if I start slurring, that'll be bad. But anyway,
Okay, we'll wind up if you start slurring, yeah.
Rivera fires back, saying that something along the lines of the hag you call mother shows her teeth at last. And Caplo shrugs. The warlock queries about the power below, and his wife admits that though she has reached out before, whatever it is that awaits them promises something, and is clearly not good. She decried Caplo's presence because she knows that a measure of sacrifice, blood sacrifice, is required. She's both willing and ready to give her life in this new shaping because the Sheikh need a god to guide them through this conflict. Even to stand apart from the secular civil war.
To people
Yes.
who might have forgotten, the river god died at the end of Forge of Darkness.
Because
So
someone decided, hey, let's unfold the Terrandai in the Citadel. Yay! Moving on. Yeah.
Yeah, just in case people have forgotten, because the river god was dead, Triss brought him back, and then Draconis killed him. So
Again.
yeah. So the Sheikh are once more godless, and they're quite happy. Sort of.
We'll get to that. Yeah. So even to stand apart from this secular civil war will require the strength granted upon them by the power of a deity. Shogando is dying, and Skelenal is dithering. Yeah, sure he is. It must be them that take care of the fashioning. Resh agrees, and Caplo voices no protests, and so Rivera begins the ritual. Caplo notices a form blur in the distance, and as the blurring continues, the form begins to take shape. A body lying prone, at first seemingly just bones, before its muscles and flesh materialize.
Oh, it's prone? Okay.
Yeah, it lies supine.
I don't know
which
why.
I assume means prone.
Supine is the opposite of prone.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
It's face upwards, so I guess the other way around. Yeah, okay. Yeah. Okay, my bad. He's not technically prone.
Do you know how we learn that? Like, they teach us like kings pronate and beggars supinate and things like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
So yeah. So first there is a skeleton, and then there is the musculoskeletal system, and then we have skin, and then it blurs into some 20 weasels, otters.
We'll get to that. Hang on.
Sorry, I'm getting ahead.
No. So the manifestation is very much akin to the descriptions we get of early human adjacent races. Short, stout, pronounced facial bones, deep eye sockets, which are probably not actually eye sockets, I think you mentioned last time.
Like, why?
I think you brought something up about like someone's eye socket where it wasn't actually his eye socket.
I don't remember. No, I think we were talking about that Iskral pust socket. That just
no. Maybe it was the same like thing when we were doing like Haveral just looking at his knee, but it doesn't really matter.
Okay.
Anyway, and it's later confirmed indeed that the body indeed belongs to one of the Eresal, right?
But do you know something? Did you notice something? We don't get any spice smell.
Yes.
Like even when the Jek were assembling and wearing and all that, we used to get some smell. But this chapter, there is absolutely no description of that. Why? Discuss. I don't know. I have no clue. Do you know?
I have some thoughts, but we're going to get to that later.
Okay.
Because it's an older power, right? So it's more refined, presumably? Or less refined?
Is it like supposed to be older than the Jek?
Yeah.
What did Disemblackist try to do?
He basically Horcruxed himself, like Voldemort.
Yeah, but did he borrow it from the Jek people or from this?
From the Daragoth. The Daragoth are supposedly, like in the Book of the Fallen, the Daragoth are their own thing. They're like their own race.
Yeah.
supposedly, according to a Cirque, they're unrelated to the Hounds of Shadow. But then we see that they actually are, because the Hounds of Shadow go and merge with the Daragoth, but then later the Daragoth are chasing after the Hounds of Shadow, and then they're never brought up again. I have no idea. But basically, he tried to bind his soul to become a Divers, and supposedly became, according to legend, the first Divers. And then Gorgona's like, nah, dude, no, he didn't. But yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, go on. So this thing happens.
Before Caplo can examine the body further, however, the apparition wakes up and veers into a dozen weasel-like shapes that set upon the party. Caplo is not dressed for the occasion, and he takes quite some damage before dispatching of 3 beasts. His right arm is rendered useless, his left thigh is savaged, with Thresh taking out another 2, much more properly dressed, because though he's a warlock, he's built like a tree, he has an axe that's taller than he is, and he wears chain. Rivera gets absolutely decked.
I mean, she wanted to, right? She wanted to sacrifice herself, so...
and the warlock seems lost in his grief, instructing Caplo, who is probably not going to make 10 paces from this scene, to go and make his report. The assassin, due to respect for his friend and possibly a little delirium settling in, complies. On the way back, Caplo Dreem, for lack of a better word, hallucinates.
Yeah.
That was awful. I pronounced it awfully. I'm sorry. Hallucinate.
How do you say it? Hallucinate.
No, there's a completely unrelated side note. I'm sorry, I'm drunk. There's a cheese called halloumi, which is pronounced like that.
Yeah.
It's Cypriot.
Okay.
And that's because I always mock it, because like Cypriots have very heavy accents. So it just stuck to me. The halu sound, I just sound like an idiot. So I can't pronounce the words properly anymore. Anyway, Caplo hallucinates.
Right. But it could also be that he's like walking through time, basically.
That happens immediately after. He thinks in his report that whatever this creature was, it split into many creatures, and was uninterested in negotiation.
I love that line so much, yeah.
Yeah. The Teist are but as children in this land, and the past waits but does not invite, and to walk into its room only yields the death of innocence. Cheers.
Yeah.
Taking a shot. Cheers. I'm taking a shot whenever Caplo is Caplo-ing. I'm going to be dead by the end of this episode.
No, but then after 3,000 words, you have nothing more to drink.
Jeez. So, infection in conjunction with blood loss has driven Caplo into what he perceives to be a fever dream. He appears to be in what looks like our world's savannas before the dawn of man. The creatures little different from horses, could be zebra, and those that bear impossibly long necks are giraffes. That there are no tailed apes that I know of.
Long-tailed macaques, but they're Asian, I believe. I don't think they're in Africa.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Didn't know that.
I looked up.
Because I don't remember. I'll have to look it up. But yeah, I looked it up.
Long-tailed macaques, apes, which walk on all fours and things. Long-tailed primates.
Fascinating. Right. Which Caplo considers to be a dream world. Imagination comes back to haunt the assassin, who feels his reason drip away, not unlike Skelenel's words in the beginning of the chapter, leaving behind just the imagination he forsook so long ago. Caplo tries to force reason into the scene, and he takes a very nihilistic stance on the matter, and the scene seemingly defies him. Should that be on the world's behalf or on Galan's behalf, we'll never know. He finds himself in a boreal forest, or a taiga, depending on where in the world you're from, surrounded by veteran, and happens upon another of the creatures he found in the basin, ripping apart the bole of a fallen tree.
What creature is it?
A weasel-like creature, the same thing you found earlier.
Oh, is that the same one? Okay.
That's what he says. But again, he's a bit delirious, probably. He swears that it and he are not done here, and the scene swaps again to a stretch of denuded bedrock. By the way, I don't know why, but Steve uses the word denuded a lot when it comes to Caplo.
Mm-hmm.
Rather than use
like naked. Supposed to imagine him.
Or, he doesn't gawk, but admires. The gawk is unseemly.
I mean, I would not gawk at him. I would admire. Yeah, it just says 6 times in this book.
All of them are Caplo, surely.
No, the next
Anyway.
time Denuded comes, it's with P and D.
Okay.
Yeah.
That makes more sense. Yeah. And as his blood drips upon the stone, Caplo thinks back on today's events. Whatever this thing of the past is, it's awake. Rivera thought she could tame the past, but the past cannot be tamed, for the only slavery possible is found in the now, where the ambitious lurk and wish to displace everyone yet unborn, and anyone not found within the ranks will surely be in chains, just another slave. Cheers.
Another defenseless child. The one thing which I noticed was, like when he's walking through all these things, he feels that just him walking is pulling the grass out of the ground, which shouldn't happen. Like if you're a normal human person just walking on grass, you wouldn't be dragging grass out of the thing. And yeah, and he thinks that, his hand is so flayed and so deformed because of the attack, it looks different now. So by now, by now at least people know that what's happening with Caplo is not as straightforward as we assume. He's already transformed. He just doesn't know it yet.
Yep.
And this whole thing is like a journey of him finding out that he's finally become a divorce. So it's total fun. I don't know why you were venting so much about this, but it is so good. Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, it's fine. Imagination can be thrust away, killed, left strangled upon the threshold, as Rivera put it, by the obstinate will of the realists, incapable of dreaming. They would seek to make the world barren and lifeless, such as their inner landscape, and Caplo would support them. Imagination dwells in the past, and we'll have none of that. By dispiriting the world, Caplo becomes its master. He becomes the god. And now, a part of me wanted to cite Nietzsche's Übermensch here, but I was going to butcher the shit out of that, and I didn't want to misrepresent the guy, so if any of you know if this is like, I'm at all on the same track, by dispiriting the world, I become its master. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah. Open question.
By forcing reason under the scene, the assassin manages to wake up to what he calls reality's kiss, and another one of those motifs of kisses coming up,
True.
Pointed out a few episodes ago. He has a revelation. The past is calling, and what it mutters is, lead unto me each and every child. Caplo, feeling soft hands about him and knowing he's in relative safety, lets himself drift into darkness. But not all the way.
It's Caplo. Yeah.
So a few things. One, Caplo continuously cites Skeleton's quote, and in general, like the loss of innocence, the foul-fingered men grope children, and hear about the past. Which, coupled with how Resh in later goes on about how the past is a dead thing to the present and the future. It's a very interesting motif that comes up again and again in Caplo's monologue. So, in short, one of Caplo's revelations in this chapter is that the past is never what we make it out to be. It's more vile than we remember. It's worse than we remember. It's always worse than we remember. And living in the past is dangerous and awful. And, yeah.
What? Yeah.
Now this ties a bit into Kaigamandra's later talks about legacy, which I'll get into when we come to that. And Narad's trippy ass scene, as well as like Caplo's trippy ass scene with Dogron's hunting. But I'm getting ahead of myself. That was just scene 1, by the way. And it was about 5 pages. Anyway.
Nice. What are we calling the next one?
For the dead to walk back into life, the living must walk into death.
Is that the title?
Such a killer quote. Yeah.
I mean,
and it's
you're just padding the numbers like this. If you just put quotes as titles.
True enough, yeah. So, Captain Fenara Stone of the Wardens looks upon Caplo's sick form. The assassin is unconscious, with his right arm amputated at the elbow, and his body is filled with some kind of pitch, along with apparitions of infection. Fenara was in a similar situation not long ago, but then Lord Ilgastren had healed her of the Null. Nobody thought Caplo would make it through the day, which is very true. The guy got savaged by wild animal bites, and he's filled with pus, basically. So chances are he's probably dead.
Yeah.
Cheers.
And in the same room, there's also Resh. I think we are told after a bit of time, right? After she finishes monologuing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Finara tries to make sense of the scene. The bite marks she sees are consistent with wolf canines of the Jalorcan, and she knows that the Jack of the South are a smaller breed. Therefore, it's technically possible that this creature was one of them. Resh disagrees. The creature looked nothing like a Jack, and he contends that it's an animal long since vanished. To elaborate on this, Resh takes a turn to the metaphysical. Dispense with the scene if you want to make sense of this and whatnot. It just goes on a tirade, and Finara only steps in to say, "I don't think I understand you." It's really great. Anyway, so allow me, if you will, to nerd out a bit. Rivera found something asleep, ostensibly for eternity, and she awoke it. Resh claims this world is one of many veils, but our vision can only pierce one, the material world, a world that seems wholly deterministic, a world that can be explained thoroughly by the natural laws that can and will be found. Excuse me. Vinara is shocked at these words. Resh sounds much more like a physicist than a warlock, as my addition. But the latter replies that his arts seek to impose a measure of order, to find the laws that dictate what lies beyond. If this world is fully deterministic, Resh claims, then the others should be as well. That journey, Finara claims, and Resh agrees, is symmetric, both outward and inward. Though they move into wholly different directions, they both seek the same thing and are fueled by the faith that even the impossible has rules, which is a killer quote, by the way. Cheers.
Yeah. I think they disagree on, does that make him less of a sorcerer or more of a sorcerer? Because he's trying to look for rules in the impossible. And she says, that isn't exactly what a warlock is supposed to do.
Right. Resh at last got to the chase. Rivera claimed that blood was a necessary component of awakening this creature, but she was only half right. To draw something back from the dead, a similar demand is made of the living. Resh makes a very interesting observation. If a warlock seeks to journey both inward and outward towards the same destination, then the corollary is one of contraction, to collide into the same existence. For the dead to walk back into life, the living must walk into death.
And I think she asks whether that is coin. So the living has to pay coin to return the dead. And what does Resh say?
I'll actually first try to explain what he means here. So, Resh contends that there exists a place where the veil between the realm of the dead and the material world is thin enough to allow movement between the two worlds. But for such movement to take place, an equilibrium must always be maintained. And so a sacrifice is required from the living for the dead to come back to life. And then Finara says, so is Rivera's life a coin for the spirit's resurrection? And Resh replies that, yeah, it's technically possible because the veils are agitated. He thinks about it some more and replies that maybe not. Maybe not coin, but food. Because in order to pierce the veil, one needs enough power to do so, and a living soul just might be enough to defy the laws of time. The warlock makes the fascinating metaphysical argument, not physical, because he doesn't know anything about that, by the way. This is built purely on faith and what he understands of his arts. This isn't observational. So it's metaphysical, not physical. Anyway, he makes the fascinating metaphysical argument that time and space are one and the same, as you can view time as a place where people dwell. The dead dwell in the past, the future awaits those yet to be born, and we all live in the present. The future, thereby, ever remains an unattainable promise, and so time and space are both veils, and in that sense, they're one and the same. In order to arrive to the future, one must cross the veil, as, to the future, the past and present are dead things. Remember what Caplo just said earlier? About the past whispering, muttering, yeah. All of us seek to make the future better than the present, but as we are armed with naught but lifeless weapons, we make of the future a dead thing. Finara doesn't get this argument. There's a measure of difficulty in discerning the through line beneath Eres's argument, which I've not even tried to do, and instead I've summarized it piecemeal. And Finara thinks the man might have been driven mad by grief, which is certainly possible. She asks that he return to the notion of power, and Resh reluctantly complies. Cheers.
Yeah.
In fact, Resh believes that this metaphor of veils is very real and very widespread. He spoke of the veils of time and those between life and death, which may indeed be one and the same, which is a very interesting contention to make. That life and death are but anomalies or differences or some different iterations of the veils between life, between time, past, present, future, which, given that in the Book of the Fallen we see a similar story depicted with Ikarim's warrens, with Starwheel, with life, death, with misfortune, fortune, and whatnot. Like, time stands outside, but the veil is depicted by a coin.
Have you seen Arrival?
I have not.
You should. Yeah, it's the whole concept of cyclical time.
Right. But Resh now believes that there's many, many more veils, and in plucking them, the less substantial they become. Now, a fascinating aside, this notion of plucking veils until they become insubstantial comes up quite a bit in the Book of the Fallen. I already brought up Vicarium. The one thing I brought up here is actually Culp, the mage of the Seventh, in the Solanda, because he tries to make like a rend in the Mana's Warren to get the Solanda through, but because like Olar comes through and just wrecks everything, he makes a rend so big that it just grows on its own, and it's like, oh fuck, I just destroyed my Warren. So this is a very real threat presented to mages when they're presented with big power sources. But granted, both Resh and Galan are being allegorical here when they talk of like veils, because Resh doesn't know of Krul's warrens, and Galan is a poet, so he's obviously fucking with you. But the underlying concept is still there, right? Now, Finara, again, doesn't get it. She's a warden, and she's not suited to metaphysical explorations of what constitutes reality. Pit her against the weasels that jumped Caplo and Resh, and she'd do just fine, understanding the veils that separate worlds, living and dead, and time itself, and she struggles, as do I. And so Resh dumbs it down for us. Excuse me. This newborn sorcery is all raw power. God damn it. I know always ruled. And worse yet, the Shake Warlocks cannot reach through to one another. Which is a problem. For obvious reasons.
Why can't they reach to one another? Because they don't know.
Because they're scared.
How...
They don't have a god, and because of the sorcery and the power unleashed, they're scared. Which makes sense.
Maybe we need to be a bit more explicit. This new sorcery is all because of Krul's thing?
So, yes, probably maybe, because we saw in Forge of Darkness Erastus creating his tiles, right? And we know that the holds are supposedly more wild and raw and without rules compared to the Warrens. So, yeah.
The thing is, this sort of makes it look as if the tiles and the Warrens all came up at the same time. That's not what we thought in Book of the Fallen, right?
Karkanas in Book of the Fallen, Karkanas in Forge of Darkness makes the claim that sorcery is born of Azathanite blood. So the root of both tiles and Warrens, holds and Warrens, is the same thing. The only difference functionally is how refined they are. right? So Cruel's blood, or anyone's blood for that matter, is the source of magic, right? And blood magic as a whole. Just to fuel the tiles, you need human blood, you need sacrifice. For the Warrens, Cruel just chopped up his veins. It's like, oh yeah, here you go. You can use mine.
Yeah.
That's like the key difference we see in the Book of the Fallen. Here, there is no difference yet, because Cruel hasn't presumably completed his mission, right? Like, we only see Erastus try to hijack his horns thus far.
So, no, my question is again, if people like Resh and Rivera are seeing this new sorcery, I was just thinking it is all because of Cruel, but maybe it's because Erastus has started imposing rules on the holes and with the tiles. And is that why sorcery is more accessible to these people? I thought it was all Cruel all the way. I did not think of tiles at all.
So, Cruel seems to be the more accessible, like, magic, right? But the Terrandai, the Sorcery of Dark, isn't Cruel's. It's blood magic bound by Erastus into a folding of night, which has nothing to do with Cruel. The tiles are an imposition of order on Cruel's magic.
How can it be on Cruel's magic?
Good question. I don't know.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's where I'm stuck. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So, Finara asks about the dark, and Resh then goes on about veils once more. Are darkness and light little more than just veils? What of Draconis' gifts? What of Therandai? The Warden observes that perhaps Draconis simply seeks to impose rules, and again going on about veils, Resh ponders this fact. Light and dark are simply defined by the absence of the other. Simple and effective rules. Thereby, Resh must see this Therandai for himself. But he doesn't move, because his friend's not going to make it, unless Resh helps him. Now, Finara observes that the warlock just now spoke of how dangerous it is to delve into healing magic, and in a moment of selflessness, Finara Stone offers her aid in healing Caplo Dreem, which baffles Resh. The Sheikh have repeatedly denied her petitions, they're obstinate and they're obdurate, and yet here she is, potentially ready to give her life for Caplo? The Warden replies that the Sheikh understand little of what lies beyond, and Resh counters that what they see, bigotry, hatred, persecution, does not track with Finara's selfless act here, which she agrees. Therefore, how can Resh trust her? The former replies simply that, if nothing else, her purpose is purely political. She seeks support for her petition and seeks to garner favor. Resh is still unimpressed because not only are the Sheikh not going to help her, even then, but there's no god to bless her deeds. The captain replies that she needs no gods to measure her deeds. She'll do it herself, and she's all the harsher with herself for it. She needs no priest to dissemble on her behalf, which is a fascinating attention on priestly roles, and Resh thereby finally subsides. No god observes the Sheikh either, and nothing of what Resh does is sanctioned by the deity. Therefore, he instructs the Warden to draw her blade, though against what, he cannot say.
Scene 3? Yeah.
I'll take a sip really quick. Oh god, cheers.
Cheers. Oh god. Yeah.
It's quite something.
So
Yeah.
Scene 3?
Scene 3, which I've named Dog Runners Hunting.
Yeah.
Because-
Awesome. Yeah.
So, okay, this scene's a trip. If you haven't read it already, it's a trip.
If you haven't read it already,
You shouldn't be here.
What are you doing here?
Read it again. But yeah. So Caplo is presumably within a dream world, wherein he's being dragged to a cave rank with animal smells, while bound like a hog to the slaughter. More accurately, perhaps, his body is that of a leopard, hairy, chest bulging like a bird's, and his memories, if they're even his, inform us that he's a victim of a dog runner hunt. He was asleep in a tree, having feasted on the carcasses of dehydrated animals in the scrublands. There was no glory to be found in driving a spear in such a carcass, however, while the leopard, such as Caplo, was a trophy indeed. They scouted the trees for such beasts, who are not beasts at all. They are, in fact, Eresal. No apostrophe to denote past here, by the way.
That's true, yeah.
Whom the dog runners hunt for sport and for trophies, having already claimed the land and driven most of them from the scrub. Because earlier, their first wars, which Caplo mentions, was due to land acquisition. The dog runners were effectively conquerors. Here, they're just hunting them for sport, which is, yeah, it's the same. Yeah. Alas, however, this particular tree was marked with leopard spirit, I think he mentions, though they paid no heed. And now, joined by his kin, those who lived, those who fell away, those who made compact with beasts and joined their souls with them, thanks to one great mother who would rot everything inside and hoard seeds, a blessed Mahibi, a vessel.
Oh, is that how you say it? Okay.
It's Mahibi. I don't remember how the audiobook pronounces it, actually.
Mm-hmm. Oh. Yeah, I don't think I got that far in the audio.
But yeah. Now his kin had come, for Caplo wasn't just one leopard, but many. And the many now came to deliver slaughter. Though a dog runner does kill him, in his final moments, Caplo laughed, because it was too late.
So just explain it. You've done the summary. Just tell us what's going on.
What's there to understand? What's your question?
That was my question. What's going on? But see, so it's basically Caplo has become a leopard.
Yep.
And it was the Eresal who had all this diverse magic. The dog runners, who will later become the Imas, have been hunting and killing off all the Eresal. But people like Caplo, who have sort of stepped through time, he can just show up wherever he wants because we've already seen this happen. So he's there in the past, and the Eresal are not fully extinct. So, so yeah.
Yeah.
That's it. Scene 4?
Pretty much.
Okay.
Scene 4. Now, if you want more information on the Eresal, I would suggest looking into Dust of Dreams, Chapter 10, or thereabouts. When Quick Pen and Bottle meet. You'll know the scene. You know the one.
Or is that the one you just recently summarized and we would not it
I'm not sure. I think so. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
But because they talk about, because Bottle's getting visions from the Eresal, the goddess, the great mother that Caplo is referring to. And
they were the seafaring people, right?
Yeah.
So they reach the island and they reach the beach and everyone just starts building boats and they just take off.
Yep.
Yeah.
And why do they take off? Because they're being
hunted. Yeah.
And who's hunting them? These fucks.
Imas. The proto-Imas.
So, scene 4, which I have lovingly named Abyss Below. Yeah. We got back to Finara, observing Gresh's attempt to heal Caplo. Whatever it is the work's doing, she can't tell if it has an immediate effect or not. Since he's not doing much of anything, she gets to think. She's been in the monastery for a while, weeks by now, has noticed that the walls of the monastery virtually impose ignorance, which is a very interesting thought, upon the residents. There's something almost reassuring in this fact, as though by walling off the outside world, they can ward off its advances for as long as the walls themselves stand. And Finara thinks, if gods could offer such simplicity, would not every mortal yield to worship? The world was full of injustices and complexities. Even the monuments raised as a fist in the face of impermanence eventually fell. There was nothing simple about living. Though Finara's convictions border on the worship of complexity, a part of her longs for simplicity. Alas, no such simplicity would be found in the shake places of worship, for their god is dead, and their altars are lifeless. They had indeed found simplicity, yes, but it was one that obstinately ignored and refused the complexities of the world, rather than try and simplify them. The Sheikh's conviction that they would stand to one side was flawed, Finara believes. They would find themselves in the middle, and within the line of fire. I don't think I need to point out the parallels between the Eater and the Sheikh. Cheers.
Do you have? Is it like spoilers to ask? Like maybe it's best for end of the book discussion about the Sheikh and the Eater and all that.
Would it be a spoiler to say we have no idea?
Okay, yeah, that's fair. Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah,
we might have some thoughts, but yeah.
We have a lot of thoughts. We have no confirmation or explicit confirmation. We don't know.
Yeah.
It gets complicated as the book goes on. But as it stands, chapter 4, we have no idea who the Sheikh are and who the Eater are. Because Skara is doing his whole thing. Tulas is doing his own thing. The Sheikh of Karkanas are doing their own thing. The Deniers are doing their own thing. And all of these groups have to mesh together and become two different, distinct, but I'll get to it when we get there, because we're going to get there with Narad in this chapter.
Yeah.
But by the end of the book, we still have no idea. So.
Okay.
Yeah, so Resh, Finara claims, was the last soldier, which she later corrects to leader, left Shikanto and Skelenol, and his grief and doubt hardly qualify him as the leader behind which to rally. And the warlock was taking his time, and Finara's nerves afraid. She let her sword tips touch the floorboards right as Resh shouts.
Yeah.
The titular abyss below. The captain is startled as the warlock seems to straddle Caplo in an attempt to hold the assassin down. Resh insists on not letting Caplo leave, which baffles Finara. As far as she can tell, Caplo is not struggling or resisting whatsoever, but she complies regardless. Much to her shock, a taloned hand pierces the gauze placed on Caplo's severed arm, and Resh says this is due to admixture of blood. In a shower of allegory, we learn that whatever bit Caplo infected him with something, and that something, what Resh calls the old blood, now dwells within him. Rather than trying to subside or kill the assassin, it effectively becomes a symbiote within Caplo. It's a parasite. And none of this is Resh's doing, because the power emanating from the beast is too strong even for his magic. The assassin is on the verge of veering, which Finara recognizes as something akin to the Jack, but Resh counters that whatever this is, it is much older than the Jack. And when the veering process comes to an end, Caplo is fully healed, with no sign of infection. Resh believes that infecting Caplo is a means of escape for this revenant Divers, in accordance with Resh's words about food being necessary to escape death. Now,
it actually says revenant. Does it say the word? Oh,
yeah.
I don't know why I didn't notice. Revenants are very important in Cradle. So.
Oh, is it?
Yeah. Oh, I think revenants are called remnants. Sorry, yeah, I'm doing the audiobook, right? So it all. Yeah, it's called remnants, but yeah, that's the same meaning.
Yeah, I spoke of the revenant awakened by my wife. Now, in general, as far as I know, revenant refers to something that's dead.
Yeah, dead spirit or ghost or
a person has returned, especially supposedly from the dead. Yeah, so purportedly, Caplo and Resh mostly, believe that whatever this is, it has come back from the dead. It was dead, functionally dead, which is fascinating. Anyway, to complete the scene, the only thing the warlock can say for sure is that when, not if, Caplo awakens, he will not be the same as he once was. Have you any thoughts about the scene that you want to share?
I just thought that, when the old Caplo is being killed, he was straddled by a dog runner, and here, when he's being saved, once again,
good point.
Resh straddles him. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. Give me 1 second.
So,
and we're back. Sorry for that. So, next scene is the one I'm not particularly happy with. It's Gagamandra Tulas, right?
Yeah.
I have.
You almost asked me to do it.
I did.
I don't know why.
I did not have the time to summarize everything. I ended up having the time, but I did not do the scene justice, I think. Anyway, I have named it I Am as a Ghost. I linger on through lack of will.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
which is a fascinating difference compared to Renar, right, from chapter 1, and how she is a ghost.
She's too solid to be a ghost.
Exactly.
I mean, are there any
Right.
happy people in this?
God, no. The only people who are happy are like Frazak and Dathner, or they're drunk. No one else.
Yeah. I mean, even poor Orphantel is not happy. Maybe Ribs
Yeah.
is happy.
Sure. Maybe. I think so.
I'm just making small talk so that you drink it, you have your drink in peace. And you're just stopping that and just start talking.
No,
Yeah.
fine. Sure. So Kagamanda Tulas, having fled Nerid Sor, following Sintara's gift of Leo Sands, the residents, is currently facing east, lacking the will and fortitude to go on in this winter. Excuse me? Yeah. Perhaps a better man would have continued on, a man worthy of poems and epics, but Kagamandra, alas, is not that man. Indeed, Tulas contends that no such man exists beyond the poet's tales, tales where every step is a battle won, and every war is a worth fighting. He once believed that such tales would be spun about him and his exploits in war, and to recall that Kagamandra was elevated to the position of nobility because of said exploits in war, but he has long since grown jaded of such notions. Sharinas, a woman whom he almost certainly loves, because, frankly, Sharinas dispensed with title and heritage, and spoke to Dulas as an equal, which is astounding in Cruel Galen, apparently.
It could also be that Sharinas is just extremely attractive, maybe.
Oh, yeah, but, she's mine, so...
Isn't she Ankadu, Sharina's Ankadu?
Yes.
Yeah, so she has a reputation. And that's why Sukul was sent off, so... She's charming. And Tulas has probably never had. And you know how Kural Galen is so anti-wrinkles, and we're told that Tulas is not, he doesn't have good skin.
Mm-hmm.
So,
good point. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, she had urged them to find Faror, but in thinking back, Amandra realized that his desire to find betrothed is driven by necessity. He doesn't love Faror, and how could he expect her to love him back? Now, if you think we're treading ground already walked on, you would be kinda right. I did admit to struggling to see a reason for Tulas's inclusion in this particular chapter, but
no,
in case,
I think,
we
there's
get more.
Also one more thing which I liked, because he talks about the hero's quest and how the hero would not, in a poet's tale, he wouldn't like suddenly lose his motivation or all that. Do you know the last time we were talking about some Idur going on a hero's quest and not exactly following through?
Fear?
Yeah, Fear Sengar being dissed by Udinas. It's the same thing, right? Like, we have this ancient Idur going through the same thing, but he's doing it to himself because he doesn't have Udinas with him.
Yeah. Everyone needs an Udinas in their life.
I know, yeah. Maybe we need an Udinas bot who'll just pop up and say, yeah.
Yeah. Anyway. So we get more on Commander. His dad thought him self-indulgent as a child, and for all his efforts towards recognition and renown, he never once received the acceptance from his father. His 3 brothers all died in the wars, and though Kagamandra returned home a hero, his old man never once spoke his name again. There's a short bit of legacy from Kagamandra. Yeah.
Is it like the Idur thing to have like 4 sons all the time?
Could be.
And the youngest keeps doing something unexpected, like survive a war or die and come back with a sword. And
Skara technically has 3 daughters, so not 4 sons. Skara Banderas, Skabandari Bloodeye.
He has 3 daughters.
Yeah.
Does he really have 3 daughters? Like,
no, he doesn't. But still.
It's
no
Brack.
4 sons
Brack
to speak
has
of.
3 daughters. So.
So there's a short bit on legacy from Kagamandra, which is quite interesting. As a quick aside, the ancient Greeks were obsessed with one's legacy, and being immortalized in song or poem or art was one of the biggest life goals for such warriors. Kagamandra's father seems to echo a similar notion here, which makes the fact that he never accepted his son's legacy all the more interesting. Especially since Tulas gets shorn at some point in time.
How much are you willing to bet that we are never going to see that scene in Carcanos?
It's not happening. It's not
It's
happening.
not coming, right? We're just going to think that Tulas has so much history going on in Book of the Fallen. Like he rolled Shadow for a bit or something, and he fought alongside Hood in the Jagged War, and he was buried somewhere, and then he clawed out of it as a dragon form, and all sorts of shit. I don't think any of that is going to happen here. It's just
I don't
going to be
think
this old man who's going to elope with Sharinas, and he's going to just live on some hillside. That's it.
Thinking on how his love for Sharinas and the lack thereof for Fire is bound to lead him into trouble, and because of his food running out and the storm catching up to him, Tulas rides out to meet a troop of riders. He's scouted, ostensibly, a troop of wardens. Now, scene 6, because I don't have very much. Do you have anything to say about Kagamatra? I don't
know why you're so put off by his appearance. Like, why are you being such a farer? Yeah.
It's a long chapter.
See,
and I don't really see a narrative tie-in. That's why.
I do, because it's all about the shadow.
Yeah.
This entire chapter is shadow, and that's the main reason he's there. And also, next week, I'll tell you how much of chapter 4 is reflected in chapter 5.
Okay.
It does. All these things, at least, 2 of the major scenes come back there.
Sure. Yeah. Right. So scene 6.
What are you calling this?
The threat of war greets all of us.
Is that so? I thought you'd call it just like Thirsty Spinach or something.
Oh, yeah. But that's later. So
you are Bertha, quite drunk, aren't you?
A little bit. I'll admit. Yeah.
Yeah, you're slurring now.
Bertha, who is not Bertha at all, actually, and is in fact Bered, Sergeant of the Warden.
Please clarify. Who is Bertha?
And the name, I will be referring to him through the summary. Bertha is corporal in Scarra's troop. He is one of Nered's only friends, and he is presumably the guy that Nered killed earlier on Hall of Light.
Yeah. And Steve forgot that this guy was supposed to be Bered, the one whom Finara asks to keep a watch on
Finara, Yep.
And Barsa is a good name, so I don't have a problem with, making this guy Barsa. See, Galan is an old man. He's allowed to take such liberties.
Yeah, I'm sure he is.
Yeah.
So, Bered spots Kagamatra Tulas' approach and informs Khan Hussein of the man's imminent arrival. As the troop awaits the arrival of the captain, Bered thinks back on the incident with the dragon's arrival over the Sea of Vitr and the dreams he has been having since. He recalls running through
throne. Yeah. And crown.
There is no orb, though. There's a chalice, not a throne. And there's no throne.
A chalice is usually orb shaped. So
no, it isn't.
What shape is a chalice? What do you call that?
It's a cup.
Does it all have to be a specific particular sphere?
Yes.
You can have a chalice which is like a goblet shape, like a circle. Right.
No.
I'm not drunk. I don't know why I'm stooping to your level. Please continue.
Okay, I'm very sorry. Yeah. Okay,
yeah.
Anyway. So he recalls running through a featureless plain, carrying the treasures of wise Kirkanis, while fleeing the presence of Elaint. The treasures are broken. The coins he has spill away constantly as he flees, and the overall metaphor seems to be on the topic of material wealth in the face of destructive nature. All the treasures of wise Kirkanis cannot save Bered from the approach of the Elaint. When the day of reckoning arrives, the Teist, no measure of wealth will spare them. Alas, for me, not for the Teist, all of this is but a dream.
Yeah.
They've not spotted the Elaint since the day on Glimmer Fate. And in the meantime, Bered has taken to envying and resenting Spinok Rav for his youth and fortitude.
Who won't?
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah. Basically, Spinok is too Mr. Perfect for Bered's liking. Too confident, too handsome, too seemingly magnanimous to be true. Bered's an old bastard, and he's a, yeah.
Is he repeating what Resh felt? Isn't it Resh? Who said he's too handsome
Yeah.
for my preference or something?
Something like that. Yeah, it was Resh. Yeah, but I don't remember exactly what he said. So
It is so blink and you miss it type of things, no?
yeah.
That Resh is gay and all that. Right.
So Barry is an old bastard, and his envy grows by the moment. He regrets his placement as the Ralph's guardian, as nothing good can come of his obsession. He has also taken up the habit of staring at the sky, searching for any hint of the Elaine's presence. Spinock takes note of this and teases him, lightly, but enough to ignite a fire in Barrett, though to the old man's credit, he seems keenly aware of the fact that he's not thinking properly due to his resentment of the Rav. Agamandra arrives, and Cal calls out in greeting, though his greeting is anything but heartwarming or welcoming. Tuomas assures him that he's here for his own purposes and not on Legion duty, and when Cal all but dismisses him, Kagamandra replies that he should beware the spring. To that overt threat, Cal fires back, though Tuomas reassures him that he is a soldier of the Legion no longer. Chastain is unimpressed, cut off the limb and still it bleeds, and the tide finally breaks a dam, and Tuomas gets rightly pissed. We're at war, you dumbass, and when the winter season passes, the Legion will fall upon you with renewed vigor. The tragic irony of the Legion having already fallen upon the Wardens not lost on me, or you, or the audience in general.
Oh no, it was
It
lost
is.
about me. I didn't even think of that. I thought this is happening before the shattering happened. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
At the very least, Cal informs Tulas that his betrothed is not in their camp and refuses to elaborate on where she could find Farah. Kagamandra, realizing he's simply being baited and fucked with, takes up the reins and leaves to seek shelter from the winter storm. Spinock suggests to Barrett that they should do the same, and when the latter tells him to bring that suggestion to Calnet, Spinock keeps quiet. The storm catches up to the
Barrett
Wardens.
feels so happy. Yeah.
Yeah. The storm catches up to Barrett, to the Wardens, as Barrett thinks back to his recurring nightmare.
So why doesn't Calec tell him where to find Farrer? Because he was he was a dick to Farrer, saying that you can't lust after Spinach because you're already betrothed and all that. And now when he meets Kagamandra, he just says, she's not at the end of this trail. And I can't tell you more. Is it just politics? Because he has sent her
Probably.
to Karkanas, I feel, if you remember.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, she was supposed to join Finara up to the Sheikh Monastery, and then further she has to continue to Karkanas. Or no. She was supposed to go and meet his wife. She was supposed to meet Toras. Yeah. That was her.
Yeah. She goes Legion to the House Legion, right? Yeah.
But we haven't seen her yet, so and I
No.
don't remember if we're going to see her again. You probably remember, so
Yeah, but
don't.
like Taurus is a bit
Out of it. Yeah.
decommissioned. Yeah. So anyway, scene 7, which I have named "I Name You the Watch."
Is
Now,
that all? Oh, there are so
This
many
is technically one big scene, but I have split it into 3.
Oh, okay.
So it's like real world, dream, real world. So, 1 second, yeah. So, scene 7. Narad sits by the fire in the forest along with a host of deniers, following Glyph's summons. Doesn't feel like he belongs, and his company is minimal. Save for Glyph, he knows virtually nobody, and the denier ways seem alien to his. Effectively, the denier traditions are now revolving around preparing for, hunting, and killing legionnaires. Each denier is tending to their weapons. Men, women, and children, with weapons ranging from simple bows and long knives to spear and atlatls, which is a Nahuatl word for
What
spear
word?
thrower. Nahuatl, it's old Mesoamerican.
Spell it, please.
Nahuatl.
Okay, sure. Okay.
Nahuatl. It's a people and the religion in
not-
Mesoamerica during like the 12, 13, 1400s.
Okay, I know.
You had like 3 major religions, well, 2 actually, in Mesoamerica. You had the Aztec religion, which was Nahuatl, and the Mayans.
Okay.
So this is this one. And what atlatl, I can't pronounce that word, I'm sorry. What a spear thrower is basically just a long tube into which you fit a spear, and it has a grip, which he just used to throw further.
Okay.
And often they are either used for like festival, like generally more ceremonial roles. So they're often very decorated.
Now,
But no,
like
no,
even
not
back
now.
then.
Back then. Now there's
Even back
actually
then, it
like
was decorative. It was not for hunting.
it was both.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes
But
sense.
now there's competitions actually, and there's like real life competitions for spear throwing with that stuff. It's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, so such patterns are evoked in the denier day-to-day life. That rote has led to them dispensing with words and moving quietly throughout. In a manner of speaking, they embody their own cycle of life, not unlike the cycle of seasons. It was easy to lose track of the fact that this cycle had a murder as its ulterior goal. As for Narad, his sword had been sharpened, his belt and equipment looked after, and now he has nothing to do. Nothing but watch.
Yeah.
Patterns were something Narad understood. He thinks of himself as chained or tied to an iron stake driven to the ground, and that stake prescribes a circle that is all that Narad is, was, and will ever be. He
Where did we
imagined that
see
stake.
this before?
Yeah,
We saw this in the last chapter also, right?
we did.
Galar Baras also thinks that he is stuck
Right. Dishonor.
in a stake and
Yeah.
he's just circling it. And Hunral is also doing the same, is what he thinks. So this is what I'm saying. The chapters are sort of bleeding into each other. It's not like a previous book would have had all these imageries in a single chapter, but now Steve can't do that, right? Because there is so much happening.
Yep. So
Yeah.
he imagined that stake as standing in a glade with all the earth around it beaten down. He had killed, and he would kill again. He'd been belittled, mocked, cast out. He had never known love. No woman had proven strong enough to cut the ropes binding him or approve the spike. Instead, he simply took what he would, but never found what he sought. In his mind, he was never given a chance to find what he sought, and perhaps it was all due to fate, all due to familiar, prescribed patterns in the sand. Indeed, all that need to happen is the first falling out, the first barbed words sent his way, and the facade would crack. He was not of the forest. He did not belong here, and he was merely tolerated. Better if Cliff had simply killed him. At least then Narad thinks he would be free. Now, instead, he goes round, and Cliff shocks the audience, mostly, not Narad, by crouching beside him and naming him Yadan, the Watch.
Yeah.
He awakes at the time of night, when haunts return to him, when his nerves tremble and a horrible thing takes him. A thing he cannot name without clothing it in his worst fears. When he rises to walk the camp and stand guard, while everyone else is asleep. Narad has nothing to say to that. Other names he'd been given stung, but this one, shockingly, does not. Glyph continues by claiming that his hunters, in ignoring Narad, honor him, for the Watch always stands alone. He's unconvinced. His cause has nothing to do with the deniers, and everything to do with him and his desire for redemption, a redemption which he knows cannot and should not come to pass. He dreams of killing Legion soldiers not because of what they did to the deniers, but what they did to him and to Anestia. He thinks that he should have gone to a mine, a place where he can, at long last, shatter the bedrock about the stake, pinning him in place, freeing him to take his own life. Damn, bro. The Glyph, however,
he's stuck and he wants to stay stuck because he thinks he doesn't deserve to get out of it, right? And even if he gets out of it, it should be only to straight away commit suicide. But even that he doesn't want to do right now because he wants to keep suffering. Jeez. Like you said, damn, bro. Yeah.
The Glyph, he claimed that his vengeance is his and his alone, for redemption can never be his. And to that, Glyph responds that the Watch is a harbinger of failure. He stands fast on a bridge destined to fall, where the two causes, just and unjust alike, are at the end of the day, one and the same. It seems that Glyph has already crafted Narad to suit his needs, and Narad's awkward fit is quite perfect, and he's strangely echoing Galar Barris's words on political justice as he reassures Narad of his role. Now, what I mean is, Galar in Chapter 4 of Forge of Darkness, yes, I remember the chapter, because I summarized that in one of my favorites, very specifically claims that like Forlgan society has made of justice a pure thing, an absolute thing, where dissent can find no purchase.
Yeah.
Where it's closed in on itself. And so it tolerates no dissent, it basically exists only for itself, and it's blind to others. So, Narad then queries as to what they're waiting for, and the reply is visitors from an altar stained with old blood that walk the forest and are bound to arrive in Narad's time of waking. In the meantime, Narad lays down to sleep.
What is Narad's time of waking?
I don't know, midnight?
I remember looking this up quite some time back, but I think the specific time for the watch is like
2
pre-dawn.
to 4 a.m.?
Yeah, pre-dawn. One of the toughest shifts you can take, right?
Yeah.
And that's why he's saying that when everyone else tries to go back to sleep, that's the time you rise up and keep watch. So yeah, he goes to sleep and scene 2 or scene 8. Yeah.
Okay, a few things. I know what you're thinking.
No, I don't know. I'm thinking you're drunk. That's all I'm thinking.
Obviously, I'm drunk. But also, obviously, this scene very clearly echoes the shake from the Book of the Fallen. And I will get to that, provided I'm not like too drunk to actually talk. But I think it goes a bit deeper than just that. It's not just Yedan Derek, you know. It's not like, oh, the watch stands guard, and then you feel it, you know. You're not alone. The watch stands guard. It's not just like the watch and the shake and memories and the blood. There's more to it than just that. And I think to really understand, because I mentioned earlier that we have no idea who the shake and who the eater are in Kirkanas.
Yeah.
I think it's pretty important to look into it, see where the two groups intersect and how they intersect to realize who's who. So we'll get into scene 8 now, which I've named. Yeah.
Oh, I thought you were going somewhere with that. Okay.
I need to go somewhere, but I need to narrate the rest of the bit because there's like a bit more, particularly the scene. But yeah, so scene 8, which I have named Highness, who set this world afire.
Are you just God? You can't just use like full sentences for titles.
No? Can't I? Why not?
Sure. Okay.
Yeah, anyway, no better way to start this off, just quoting. In his dream, Narad walked the shoreline of fire.
Like, this is like so hype, this particular last bit of this chapter.
So, yeah. His sword is, rather literally, carving a line in the sand, and though he's exhausted, he knows he's left quite a tally of bodies behind him. In the shoreline, ash rains down, and the fires rise high as trees. A woman walks beside him, walking like a sister, not a lover, or as a companion, but not a friend. Because the watch stands alone, you get it. This is not Narad's war, the woman claims. He will find no love here. Hidan Narad instead claims that he will stand here regardless, because every war is our war. In the end, nothing divides us. In war, we're all the same, committing the same crimes, the same acts, crossing the same blood-stained lines of the sand. And the shorelines that he now walks, why, it's but another realm of endless war. The realm of peace is the sea beyond the shoreline of fire, and we dream of swimming it, but when at last we do, we but drown. Life, Narad claims, is but a battle we endlessly fight, committing violence upon ourselves, betraying our barren inner landscape every step of the way. The woman, calling Narad brother, claims that he falters, questions his purpose, which is hardly surprising. And now I'll stop because this is about to get like bombshell revelations one after the other. And I need to be stone cold sober for this.
Okay.
Which
How are
obviously
you
I'm not
going
going to be. So, we'll just go anyway.
Yeah.
Narad then calls this woman Twilight and purports that he was a lover of men, but is corrected. That was not
Okay.
him. He staggers as the time of his waking nears, and though he pleads with Twilight to uproot the spike and that their faces were his shame, Twilight cannot comply. White faces, she claims, share nothing of their indecision, and they, that is, Twilight and her ilk, are their only shadow, and thus cannot lie to them. Narad did what he had to do, what was demanded of him, but it was not him who died in his sister's
You
arms.
did what you had to do.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, let me finish this.
Yeah.
Before he wakes up, Narad asks one last thing. Who set this world afire? And Twilight replies, by lightly touching his jaw with one gore-smeared hand, an emphasis is placed on how dead Anestia looks. Dead eyes, dead lips, dead words. You did.
Why did you switch from Twilight to Anestia?
Because it's more, I don't know. Sounds better.
Yeah.
So, that entire passage is like the double entendre is very strong with this one. Let's just say that.
Yeah.
So, at first, whenever I was thinking back on the scene before rereading it, I thought like there's a chance that maybe Narad isn't the first watch.
Okay.
Maybe he's like not actually traveling to the future. Maybe he's just like seeing memories from the past. Maybe, but evidently this chapter has pretty much torn down the theory. So it's pretty clear, to me at least, that the watch, him, who narrative refers to, is Gdan Derek from the Book of the Fallen. So, in Twilight's passage, in Anestia's passage, whoever the fuck Anestia is in this case, or whoever Twilight is more accurately,
Yeah.
it's important because whenever Anestia says Twilight, says you, it plays a fairly big role here. Narad is you. Dereg is not you. Does that make any sense?
Yeah.
So, Dereg died in his sister's arms, not Narad. Dereg was the lover of men, not Narad. Narad did what he was told. Narad did what he had to. Narad set the world of peace ablaze. It was Narad who, following orders from Legion soldiers, attacked the wedding and killed Anestia, effectively. It was Narad who was the catalyst, effectively, for the Civil War. It was Narad who set this world ablaze. The realm of peace was set ablaze by Narad. The shoreline of peace, as he later goes on to call it. It was not Derek. You were not Derek. You were not the good person that was Derek. You were not the selfless watch that was Derek. You were Narad. You were a murderer. You were a rapist, but that doesn't matter, because above all, you're the watch. So, though Anestia forgives him, you did what you had to, you did what they told you to do, that does not mean that Narad is any less guilty. And the distinction is very interesting, because the victim forgives him. Galan does not.
Yeah.
And fuck this book. That's what I want to say.
No, we've had this discussion before, I think, with Zill and all that how do you define redemption? Like, if you're forgiven, do you just, at what point do you call it as redemption? If the perpetrator himself doesn't want it, so regardless of Anestia's forgiveness or whatever. Okay, so you're looking at it pretty nicely with the metaphor that he set ablaze to the peace in the world by taking part in the rape of Anestia.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's when he asks who did this, and she's able to say that you did, right? What was the exact what do you call exchange between them? Like,
one last question, Highness, who set this world afire?
Yeah, that.
And then he describes her for a little bit. One sec. I want to find it. Damn it.
So, this switching between Anestia and Twilight.
Highness, I must ask you, who set this world afire? She reached out to him, one soft, gore-smeared hand touching the line of his jaw, lifting his gaze to her own. The rabies had done their work. There was no forgetting that. He remembered the feel of her broken body beneath him, and the ragged mess that had been her wedding dress. With dead eyes, she looked upon him, and her dead lips parted to utter the dead words, "You did."
Yeah. So, you know what? If this watch, because Yedan, okay, people who are reading this without having read Cripple God recently, I think they should go back and read it. Cripple God or Dust of Dreams? Where do you get Lightfall? Cripple God.
The Cripple God, yeah.
Yeah. So it's something to see.
I am among those people, by the way.
But you have excellent memory, and I don't know how many times you would have read just that part to answer some question on the subreddit. So don't include yourself. Yeah.
No, go on. I'm here.
No, I'm just saying that Yedan has memories of this watch, of what has happened before. So why couldn't it be like just an amalgam? Like whenever someone becomes the watch, they automatically get everything. They get all the memories of all the previous watches. So why wouldn't the same thing be happening with Twilight? So why are we switching between Anestia and Twilight?
Because it's pretty explicitly mentioned that it's Anestia here. No?
It is Anestia. That's what I'm saying. He just falters and calls her Twilight, but I don't think this is like Twilight is here yet. She doesn't correct him because all she corrects him is, it's not you.
Yeah. No, I think it's complicated.
It is definitely complicated.
So at the end of Forge of Darkness, we learn that Anestia is consecrated as Mother Dark's High Priestess. Yeah. Posthumously. Right? Yeah. And we also know that her grandma was the last High Priestess of the River God before the Culture Formation, right? So basically, Anestia is the bridge between the two worlds, which comes up now with Anomander because Narad pledges the deniers in her name.
Yeah.
Right? So
pronoun I think game is strong. Yeah.
Anestia, yeah. I think Anestia is Twilight, and she's the High Priestess of Mother Dark, and she's also not Twilight, right? It's weird.
Anestia is like proto Twilight.
I think she's not Twilight because she's dead, right?
See,
and I think this only happened.
Fall of Light. How can dead stop someone from becoming?
What I mean is, because it's posthumous, it's a bit more difficult to attribute. Like, okay, so she had to be the Watch, or she had to be Twilight, right? Because I'm getting into spoiler territory here, so I'm gonna stop. But
then stop. Yeah.
I don't
because from what I remember, because I don't remember much. This is what I'm feeling, that she is a separate entity, and Anestia is a separate entity because she's almost like a goddess to these deniers right now.
Yeah,
with someone like Narad who's worshipping her. Mm-hmm. But Twilight is, she's quite mortal.
Yeah.
So maybe there is a proto Twilight yet to be seen. But anyway, this is spoilers, so if it is spoilers, then let's wait.
Yeah.
Then Narad wakes up.
Scene 9, which I have named just one word.
Her. Yeah, you named it her. Yeah?
No, I did not name it Hell. I named it Emurlahn.
Oh, okay. Yeah, better. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for the faith. So Narad wakes up in the middle of the night during the time of the watch. The others are asleep, and so he begins to make his rounds. He welcomed the Nestis haunting, but the illusionist pretended not so much. She was not his sister, or his queen, though he may have made her so. But those honors she bestowed upon him felt earned, as though they were more than mere titles. He says that wars inside made wars outside, but fighting those wars is no virtue at all. He raises hands to his face, reflecting the wars outside, and recalls her hand touching his jaw. His inner thoughts are interrupted by company. A bestial man, wearing the guise of a savage, and a standee. The heavier one approaches and claims that the heat in the earth burns fiercest beneath Narad. If it helps, he can view the two of them as moths. Glyph approaches, and the stranger asks permission to enter his camp, but the denier replies that the privilege to grant them permission falls on Yed and Narad. Narad is startled. Glyph identifies the stranger as Azathonai, and after making sure that Kaladin is not, in fact, his enemy, he inquires about the Andi, whom he learns is Anomander Rake, first son of darkness, and the most appropriate reaction ever.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Oh, this one, sorry. You mentioned, sorry, oh god, I just forgot. When these guys meet him, Kaladin and Rake, what does Narad do? There was one small thing which you left out. Oh, something tiny which made a lot of sense to me. Sorry. Oh yeah, Glyph says that it is not about where, who has to give welcome.
When you stand.
It's about the when. So everything fits in this chapter, right? From time travel to.
Yeah.
I guess it does. It's a tiny thing. Yeah, go on.
Yeah, that's fine. So, Anomander claims that he seeks his brother lost in the woods, and Glyph's words come back to haunt Narad as he quickly realizes just who this guy is. A hand rests itself on his shoulder, but Narad refuses to open his eyes. His hands lack the strength with which to claw at his face, and so he feels helpless, with nowhere to hide. Glyph instructs the party to search north to find Anderist, but Kaladin counters that they're not done here. As an Anomander's protest, Kaladin insists they must earn the privilege to walk this forest by the watch. Rake rightfully mentions that Narad isn't just not the denier, but he also bears a Legion sword. The guy is probably a bandit among many of Earthhunter's ilk, and so they need to accord him no respect. Kaladin claims that this theory is utter nonsense and insists that they await the watch's reply. Rake is pissed. Kaladin's advice confounds, much like all the advice he's beginning of late, but Brood contends that it's not his advice that's wrong, it's Anomander that resists heeding it. God damn.
Burn, right? Maybe that's why Burn gave him his hammer, because he burns Rake so much.
Oh, yeah. The hand on Narad's shoulder was not a man's hand. How is he to open his eyes and stand before the brother of the would-be husband to the woman he so cruelly used? How would Anomander do anything but kill him on the spot? And how would Narad not welcome the Blade's kiss? Glyph speaks in the meantime. The Watch's anguish is for neither of them. The world of dreams is a strange one, shaped by anguished hands, and one of the two, though Glyph dare not clarify, is rattling Narad's anguished soul. Rake, as his name suggests, would stand fast in the face of his crimes. Pure Rakis. And,
that one, yeah.
You get it?
Yeah.
And deny nothing of what he has done. At those words, Narad looks up and formally welcomes Kaladin and Brood among the deniers, though he does not welcome Anomander. He does not deny him outright either. The time is not yet for a welcome, Narad claims, but when they are needed, he may call upon them. To Rake's credit, he adapts quite quickly to the necessary formalities. The Civil War does not belong to them, and though the deniers in the forest would delight in the vengeance Rake would sow, it does not fall to them to fight his war for him. Narad concurs, but stumbling in his inability to articulate what he wants to say, he claims that he speaks of something else. Anomander tries to interrupt him, but Kaladin shuts him down. Stifle your mouth, you fool! And Narad continues.
Yeah.
When the fire takes the sea, they will stand upon the shoreline in her name. The deniers are outraged at Narad's words, but he stands behind them and reiterates, they will stand in her name. Kaladin takes Rake by the arm and drags him away before he has a chance to reply or ask questions. Cliff asks the obvious question that Narad just pledged the deniers to Mother Dark, but Narad disagrees. Some Mother Dark, and that wasn't his dream. Cliff realizes that Anomander misunderstood, and Narad explains that Kaladin did not, instead electing to deceive the Son of Darkness. When Anomander calls upon them, Narad fears they'll already be on the shoreline described, standing fast on the shores of peace in her name. To close the chapter, Narad asks, do the deniers have a name for the shore in their old language? And what does Cliff reply?
Emurlahn. Hype. Total hype chapter, this one.
And
that is amazing.
Then the tale's tone must change, but here I'm done, sir. And
you're done.
Yeah.
That is amazing. Thank you. Yeah. Thanks, man. No, I'm not winding up. I'm just thanking you because this is huge.
So the double entendres and the pronoun game is very strong in this chapter. I have some theories which I've shared, but I probably can't share for fear of spoilers. But one thing I've been thinking for a while now is a lot of people complain or just couch, as Galan would say, they couch it as a truism, and to utter it, we how does he put it?
What are you trying to say? Yeah.
Basically, people say that like Karkanas contradicts the Book of the Fallen, and to
you're going to talk about narrative primacy right now, isn't it?
No.
Okay.
No.
Yeah.
I want to get to something else, and to reconcile the two is a bit of a fool's errand. And though in certain aspects they certainly do contradict one another, in very many others, there's no contradiction. It's just buried in allegory, right? Because here you have two very distinct groups that could very well become two other very distinct groups, and you can't tell who's who, right? You have the Sheikh, who have the names Yadan and Yanis, for their monasteries, and they have royal Andean blood, right? Because Sheikh Ando and Skelmal are both of the royal line. And then you have the deniers, who also have a Yadan, who has Derek's memories, but also is on Emurlahn, which is a shoreline, which is of the Eater. And there's so many double entendres and metaphors and allegories tying the Sheikh to the Eater and the deniers to the Sheikh, and it's very difficult to discern who is who, to the point where it almost feels like Erickson has forgotten what he's writing and just whatever.
How dare you?
Which I have seen written one too many times, and I would just want to say that the reason this works, for Karkanas to work, Erickson needs to be keenly aware of your reception of the Book of the Fallen and how you understand certain facts. If the only reason Narad works here is because he knows that you like Gedan Derek. Admit to it, motherfucker. You like Gedan Derek. I like Gedan Derek. Everyone likes Gedan Derek. And in playing with his memories, he walks in a shoreline of fire, and with a blade that wields itself as if it has a mind of its own, on, making a line through the sand and dying in the sister's arms. But not you. Not you. That was not you. And then you have the Sheikh, who speak of staying in the middle and inventing from shadows and all of that, but have the same name as the other group and standing on the shoreline in her name. And it's just none of this would work if Steve doesn't know exactly what he has written and what he intended from the get-go. There are no retcons in Karkanas. There is no lore being rewritten. The lore is one. We just don't have it. either from Book of the Fallen nor from Carcanos. It probably will never have it. These are just different versions of the same event being told through lenses of allegory. And I think no other chapter showcases, well, thus far, showcases it better than this one.
Something else which showcases what you're trying to say?
Mm-hmm.
That how much of a metaphor you need to consider all this? I think Endest's visions in Toll the Hounds, if you compare them to what's happening with Carcanas as a whole, it's like, yeah, it's pretty amazing. It's like a completely new thing you're reading, but it's actually the same, isn't it? You just have to look past all the flowery languages.
Mm-hmm. And it makes sense. It tracks.
Yeah, there is no contradiction.
If you decipher the metaphors of like Endest drowning a priestess in the river, right, in the Black River of Orson Rill, it tracks. It works.
Yeah, and Rake coming with forearms, blood up to his forearms and trying to, from the middle of civil war and all that. It's so perfect. Like, all these things already. Like, isn't that why we thought Carcanas should not have any spoilers when we discuss these books?
Yeah.
Because we know all these things. We actually know, but we like being told. Yeah.
Yeah. The more important thing is that Carcanas is ancient history for the Book of the Fallen, and then Carcanas recites ancient history in its own right. Like what Caplo is seeing here, the Eresal and the Dog Runners, is ancient history. It's old. Even to the Thais, they're the children in this land they would call their own.
Yeah.
There's so much more. And yes, admittedly, Galan tackles it a lot more in the next chapter, especially in his monologue, when he goes like, oh, you wouldn't think creation was just like disordered, right? All the mystery is gone. But
oh, is it chapter 5?
Yeah, that's his monologue in chapter 5 as it begins. But what I want to get to is we have not gotten in Carcanas at this point, chapter 4, chapter 5 of All of Light, where our flashbacks from the Book of the Fallen begin. We see Anderist, Silkas, and Rake plotting, and there's like mention of Hishtula's name. We haven't seen that. We haven't seen Skara's betrayal. We haven't seen the Eater even appearing. We haven't seen Shadow arise. We haven't seen Edgewalker. We haven't seen dragons beyond the 9 dragons that appeared. We haven't seen Tia manifest. We don't know if those things are literal or allegorical until we see their equivalent in Carcanas. But we haven't yet, because we haven't gotten there yet.
Yeah.
So, for the love of God, please stop bitching about this. It's actually driving me around the bend, because there is
people have to stop bitching about it so that you can bitch about this, right?
Yes, yeah. God damn it. But yeah, that concludes my TED Talk. I'm a bit wasted right now. I apologize. I have sobered up in the meantime, but
yeah. Just rectify it soon. Yeah.
Shall we wind up?
Yeah, let's. So thank you for listening. Thank you for watching, and thank you, Lee, so much for doing this.
Yeah.
It's a whole weekend gone.
No, it's fine. I don't mind.
It was fun, except for the Kagamandra bit, which I don't think you'll ever be happy about.
I would be happy if I didn't have to summarize it, honestly. Like, I was noticing some, like, through line, and it's like, oh, yeah, this guy being a pathetic old man. Weep for him. Like, oh, whatever.
No, just remind me.
It might get relevant later, but we won't know until we read them.
I'll tell you, like, the small bits where it's important, yeah?
Exactly.
Chapter 5 is fun, but, I don't think you'll be jealous of it. So let's see. All right. Bye.
So, Good night. Thank you. Goodbye. Good night.